Thank you, everyone, for being present today. I especially want to thank the alumni who have returned to sing that, and it was my idea to program that piece, and I'm going to smack myself when I get home. My name is Lianne Bremer, and I am Carolyn's older sister. However, that does not mean I was always right, as many of you know. As you can imagine, this might be a very difficult experience for me, so I have hired a professional actor to stand in as needed. This is my steppish sister, Lonnie Shipman, who is a professional actor, and should I be unable to continue, she will step in. The force is with me. You can also see here on the stage 4 strapping young men whom I have conscripted to be my backup singers. We are calling them the Eulogettes. You will shortly find out why. Carolyn loved each of these 4 men, who are all alumni, and her heart burst with pride whenever she heard about their accomplishments. You know, she used to scan Facebook for hours every day, finding what she called kudos. And even the most deep and secret events that you performed would go into kudos. And so I don't know what we're going to do without those, because I won't find out about those strip shows you've all been doing. She was your Dumbledore while she was here. But I knew her before she really got her Dumbledore act down. We were born and raised in Playa del Rey, California, which is right up there by LAX. We were 2 sisters with 2 pretty brainy parents. My dad was the choral director at Santa Monica High School and sang with the Los Angeles Master Chorale. My mother worked for Xerox and wrote the first software for the first laser printer.
1, 2, 1, 2. My daddy was the family bassman. My mama was an engineer. And I was born one dark day morn with music coming in my ears, in my ears, in my ears.
The Eulogettes. When Carolyn and I were 6 and 7, we had a wonderful opportunity to live in Belgium for a year because my mother was hired to install the first computer in the Bank of Brussels. This was in 1964. Yeah, we are that old. We attended the International School of Brussels, and Carolyn learned to speak French. Mercifully, none of you heard her speak French, and that makes everyone happier and less traumatized. We both started our musical journey playing the flute. We were in elementary school back in the day when there was actual music education in the schools. Oh, I'm sorry, am I being cynical? Carolyn would have none of the flute nonsense because I was better. So she begged my dad, please let me play the trumpet, let me play the drums, let me play something cool. They settled on the string bass. We did a lot of musical activities together, including the Marin Bloom Orchestra, honor choirs and orchestra. I was in the choir, not Carolyn, don't panic. And the Hidden Valley Music Seminars. The irony is she quit the flute because I was better, but she was the one who went on to get into every single orchestra she auditioned for. This is a cautionary tale to all flute players. The weird instruments always win. If you have young children, please start them on the oboe right now. We both went to Santa Monica High School and both played in orchestra, and our beloved orchestra director, Gerald Anderson, probably lost most of his hair. Remember, Daddy was the chair of the music department and taught choir at our high school, and so we did kind of take advantage of that. There was more than one occasion that Gerald's flute and bass sections were absent because we'd taken home other instruments, and we just came back the next day and sat in those chairs. He would have us test our counting and playing by sticking us in practice rooms with a recording device, and where we would have to give our name, and you can imagine how many times Carolyn would run in and say her name, and I would perform, and vice versa. It's really a wonder teachers didn't swear in the 70s, because we were really bad children. Right out of high school, Carolyn was accepted to the Eastman School of Music in bass performance. Now, this was not a gig that lasted very long for her, because New York when you're 16 and in the winter is not something that any human should be required to endure. So she moved back to California. Before she entered CalArts, which is where she got her undergraduate degree, she started working at a photo company lab, hence her love for photography, and many of you have seen her photos. Some of them are not just silly, some of them are really beautiful. So CalArts, as you may or may not know, is a really trippy place. And in the late 70s and 80s, it was weird. My favorite story of Carolyn at CalArts is when she met Aaron Copland. Oh yes, you ooh now, but wait. He was in residence for a week at CalArts, and Carolyn wanted to meet him so desperately, but she was just a little bit nervous while fangirling at the same time. Well, it was between classes, and she'd just gotten a whole package of Twinkies and out of the vending machine, and she popped an entire Twinkie into her mouth. And around the corner, she ran straight into Aaron Copland.
Twinkies are really good. They last forever. Forever. Yum.
Well, she pushed through it, and if any of you have ever stuck a whole Twinkie in your mouth, you understand why I use the word push. And she said, "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Copland." Excuse me, she said, "Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Copland." She graduated from CalArts in music composition, then went to UC Santa Barbara to complete her master's and doctorate. She missed Dr. Alicia Doyle by about a year, and actually had one of my former employees as in one of her theory classes. She loved Santa Barbara, and it was a time that she cherishes in her life. Her first job out of grad school, however, was at the University of Oklahoma.
1, 2, 3. You know we belong to the land, and the land we belong to is grand. So when we say, yo, aye-aye-oh, aye, we're only saying you're doing fine, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, okay, yeah.
You laugh, but at the very first graduation ceremony she attended in her full regalia, she was stunned when the entire school stood up and sang the entire piece before the national anthem. Oklahoma was an interesting experience for her, but let's just say she didn't fit in. But she was able to find a wonderful cohort of strange, misplaced music people who are sitting over there. She had a cluster of students and friends who followed her to California, which is why they're here, after they graduated, and many here are now having successful careers in music in the Los Angeles area. One of the moments I cherish the most was when she invited me to perform at the April Fool's concert at Oklahoma as Verlene and Vidalia, two country singers. We had glamour shots taken with cowboy hats and everything. And hair to Jesus. And Carolyn even wrote this elaborate backstory that involved me being a figure skater and her doing the choreography, which I still to this day do not understand. But My Heaving Breasts was the only country song she ever composed, and we should all be truly grateful.
My heaving breast, swell with desire, whenever you're near me, my breasts are on fire, my breasts are on fire.
If any of you would like to use this song for Beach Cafe, just let me know. Well, Carolyn knew she belonged back in California, so she left OU and took a year off, traveling the country, visiting friends and family, and shooting pictures. Then life changed again when she was offered an adjunct position at CSULB. She fell in love with the students and the campus, and she didn't mind her two-day-a-week commute from Carpenter, but eventually she was hired, yeah, that was not fun. Eventually she was hired as a full-time professor in the composition department, and that was 16 years ago, I think, but she was in charge of the numbers, so I'm not sure if that's right. She threw herself into the department and strove to better the program for the students, the faculty, and the staff. When she moved into administration, there was a part of her that felt she was letting down her composition muse. And I can tell you that after observing her serving in administration for the 7 years I was with her, that this was her true calling, connecting with other humans and working to achieve a synergy of community that would propel the department forward.
These were her true colors shining through. We saw her true colors, that's why we loved her. These were her true colors shining through. We saw her true colors, that's why we loved her.
Some of you may remember several years back when the students held their first game of Assassins or Spoons. How many of you were there for that? Yeah. So the gist of the game is that you are secretly given the name of someone in the conservatory and you have to kill them by touching them with a spoon. It's a very politically correct game. You have no idea who's coming after you, hence the assassin part. So everyone in the conservatory was just a titch on edge. Carolyn threw herself into this game with full gusto. She was so proud when she murdered her first person, even though she had cheated and used her iPhone to peer around the corner to see them. She was never very good at following the rules. Her murder took place at an orchestra concert right up there. She had asked several of us to sit on all sides of her as her bodyguard. Seriously, she was like, "They're gonna get me tonight, you have to protect me." Well, we were the most inefficient and unqualified bodyguards in the whole world because she basically was murdered right in front of us. Someone came up to her in intermission and just spooned her right in the back when we were standing there. We all laughed and laughed, but I did notice she never asked us to be her bodyguards again.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Da 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 ba da 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 ba da da da. If you be my bodyguard, I can bring you along your spine. I can call you Betty, and Betty, you can call me Al. Ba da da da.
Please do not think that the fun and games was only with the students. Not many years ago, there was an incident involving a gift from a faculty member. Allow me to share this in her own words. I came back from a nice long vacation this week. That is so not her voice. I came back from a nice long vacation this week. I felt my mind more clear, my IQ higher. Is that even possible? Things were looking good. My dear friend Mark Uranker brought me some presents because he's so awesome. We're foodie friends too. I have a display of emoticon magnets on my gong stand. Who has a gong stand? Seriously. We had a display of emoticon magnets on my gong stand, now thanks to Mark, and he gave me a gorgeous hunk of fancy aged cheddar cheese with Himalayan salt. I took the cheese home and showed it to Lianne, put it in the fridge, and I ended up bringing it back for lunch the next day at school. I was so excited. I got out my artichoke dip and my pita bread, both from the Sunday farmer's market, and my cheese. I cut off a slice and I took a bite. It was truly hideous. I thought, really, this is the worst cheese I have ever had. So I wrapped the cheese back up and I put it in my bag and I had the artichoke spread and pita instead. A couple of hours later, Mark came into the office. I was in the kitchen at the time, so I stuck my head out and I said in my sweetest, kindest voice, "Mark, honey, did you try any of that cheese?" Cheese? It was soap.
Cheese, glorious cheese, soap, not so delicious.
By the way, if you go to the reception, please look for Mark and Matt Pogue. They are wearing bright green shirts with cheese, with a soap thing on it that says not soap, or cheese that says not. Anyway, you'll find them. Carol and I would often talk about how she felt disappointed that she wasn't a successful composer. And you know, she had standards that were just utterly unrealistic for any human, and she wanted to live up to them. She would say she was a one-hit wonder because of Early Light, which you just heard. I mean, it's been performed all over the country. I mean, when you looked at the program, were you thinking the whole Air Force band was going to show up here? I was like, these people are going to be disappointed. But I mean, it's pretty dope that they played that. And also, she would never say dope, ever. I remember when she was writing it, she called me and she said, "Lianne, I'm mortified. I'm writing a piece in C major." She was horrified. Eventually it went to B flat because of the band thing, but you know, even that doesn't count. She may not have written a huge catalog of music, but Carolyn moved into administration here, and I believe she found her strength and purpose, as stated. She was now in the position to influence every student at Bob Cole and to gradually shift the program to a higher level. Of course, she didn't do this by herself. She often talked about how the faculty at Bob Cole was so different from the rest of the campus. she knew the culture here at Bob Cole was special. It was a top priority for Carolyn. Creating successful people who happened to be in the music industry was another one of her goals. It wasn't so much about those musicians who went on to become professionals, although she thrilled every time she saw them, but it was helping the individual who had a different way of approaching their degree that she loved to brainstorm with. In fact, I know for a fact there have been students who have come into her office and she literally encouraged them to drop out because she could see they'd already found their purpose and didn't need to continue in school. Don't tell Johannes I said that. Okay, I know you call her your Dumbledore, but my friends, the Carolyn remember today is a very different Carolyn from 15 years ago. Dumbledore may have had a little bit of Darth Vader, Sheldon Cooper, and cranky Princess Leia about her. Of course, she's always been brilliant and funny, but how do I say her anger coping skills have really improved in the last little while. Notice the Oklahoma people laughing. She dedicated herself to a secular Buddhist practice about 15 years ago, and when she dedicates herself to a practice, she throws herself into it. I believe she sat a total of 19 silent retreats, and she had been planning to return to Spirit Rock to sit another retreat this solstice. Since we were raised together, I could bring out charts and graphs which would thrill Carolyn no end and show you the root of all our psychological issues. We were pretty clear we had all the same issues, they just manifested differently, which was super fun living together. However, Carolyn took the back door to finding peace. I did too, but that's a whole nother story. In addition to therapy, she sat. She meditated and sat and sat and sat. In fact, the entire year when she was ill, she sat every day. She looked at those fears and those feelings right in the eye and let them dissipate through the discipline of sitting and always, always acting in great gentleness to herself and others. Before this, you got a lot of, and then you got Dumbledore. But this was a real thing. So, and I have a feeling that there are many of you who know exactly what I'm talking about.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
She used to be oh so scary. Now she is Dumbledore. She used to be oh so scary, but now she is Dumbledore.
Well, Dumbledore Bremer had a wild inner geek. It was a beaut. She loved Harry Potter, and in fact, it was she who introduced me and my children to the books. She came to our house in Utah with the first book and plopped us on the couch, made us sit down, and read the first 5 chapters to us. And of course, I ended up staying up the rest of the night and finishing the book because it was so amazing.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Carolyn loved Dr. Hugh. That's going to be the next doctor after Jodie starts. Dr. Hugh. Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Star Wars. In fact, the only time we ever saw a movie in the theater was if it was a movie about one of those things. We never went to see, no, we saw Florence Foster Jenkins. In fact, we saw Florence Foster Jenkins at like 9 in the morning with a bunch of people, and we ate popcorn, and it was awesome. Anyway. And about 6 years ago, we fell down the Big Bang Theory vortex, and we never emerged. We even had the privilege of going to a taping, and that was so awesome. And because, okay, so you geeks in the audience will appreciate this. We're walking out of the Big Bang Theory taping. We've just seen these people that she loves, and we're talking to this older couple that's walking out. And we brought it up anyway. She said, "Oh, I'm D.C. Fontana." Now, do any of you know that name? D.C. Fontana is one of the very first women television show writers for Star Trek. She wrote for the original series, you guys, and Carolyn geeked out so bad over that, I thought we'd have to carry her to the parking lot. And this last season of the show premiered last night, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to be able to watch it anytime soon, but when you watch Big Bang this season, please know that it was one of Carolyn's great loves, and she secretly thought she was Sheldon Cooper. Shh. However, if we're going to talk about Carolyn's real love, we have to talk about the Dodgers. These are my Dodger pens that she would jangle during the World Series. They didn't work. Early Light, in fact, is actually not about the Star Spangled Banner. It's all about baseball. If you hear, there's a bat crack in it, and it's all about her love of baseball, so that's wonderful. And in the late 80s, she won an essay contest, of course, sponsored by the Dodger organization, and she was allowed to sit in the photographer's box and shoot the game with the pros and even go out on the field with the team, and she was kind of, whoa, that was awesome. So it was one of her absolute favorite memories.
Root, root, root for the Dodgers. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Ball game.
Before I moved in with Carolyn, I had no idea she was such a collector. Hoarder. We have bobbleheads, Pez dispensers, gongs, singing bowls, anyway. I can tell you what they all are. You know why? She had a spreadsheet for every single one of them. To quote Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, if there were a list of things that would make Carolyn more comfortable, lists would be at the top of that list. Singing bowls. We have an enormous number, and they are all named. Named. Crazy eyeglasses. I will take credit for this one. I was the one who introduced her to buying glasses online, and it went out of control so rapidly. In fact, at the reception today, there will be a photo booth where you may take a picture of yourself with a pair of Carolyn's glasses, should you wish. You won't be able to see anything because she was so blind, but you can at least wear them. Fountain pens. I moved in at the height of this. And don't even get me started on the number of inks we have. Yes, there is a spreadsheet. I will say, though, that because of her fountain pen frenzy, we were able to buy the house we're in now because she sold one of her very, very valuable fountain pens. It didn't pay for the whole house. Don't get that excited. But it really helped. Then the fountain pen movement started bleeding over into calligraphy, and she studied with the gifted Deanne Singh, who's right here in the audience today. And she attended calligraphy conferences, bookmaking classes, botanical printmaking, and I believe at one point she had to make up her own alphabet and write it. You know, that sounds like something she'd do. And then she started very recently getting into watercolors. My mother left us a legacy of many paintings and watercolors, and Carolyn just decided to start one day. Well, one day she was crappy, and 4 days later she was really good. Yeah, that was Carolyn. And then the other thing that she collected was dogs. And Carolyn's first dog was Pamina, who was a very lovely and beautiful and stupid golden retriever. I know, they aren't often stupid, but this one really was unbelievable. And then there was Puck, and the only reason Puck was named Puck was because it was fun to say it in a park. And then there was our beloved Percy, whom many of you have met. And you catching the drift here, they all start with the letter P. Not to worry though, we found a file on our computer called P names. I am not kidding. In June this year, we lost Percy, our beloved golden doodle, at 13 and a half, and Carolyn immediately got us on a list for a puppy. The puppy shows up Friday, and Carolyn passes on Sunday. And the last words were, "You're potty training her." Pond, whose full name is Dr. Amelia Rory River Pond, which, Doctor Who joke, is now about 9 weeks old, and she's huge and she's wicked. In fact, she ate my first copy of the eulogy. I am not kidding. The truth is that anything Carolyn touched was magic, except for singing. That was not magic. Jonathan Talbert is nodding. The world is a better place for Carolyn not singing. I tell you about her quirks and her eccentricities because it's so much about who she was. And let's face it, Bob Cole's Conservatory totally deserved a weird and eccentric Dumbledore, and it couldn't have been more perfect. When she got sick in December 2016, she was just about to start her sabbatical. She had plans for that time. She was going to write a book. She was going to write the choir piece that Jonathan told you about. She was going to spend 2 months at an artist colony. Instead, she received a diagnosis of dermatomyositis, which is an extremely rare autoimmune disease that affects the muscles in the skin. Only about 9 people in a million contract this disease, and it affects everyone differently. The good news is this last summer, she was doing very, very well. I mean, she was practically back to 95%. She could get around really well. This last illness was very sudden and very quick, and again, a very, very rare side effect. And there was nothing that could be done. I'm sure some of you wondered if it was the dermatomyositis, and it was not. It was a secondary problem, but anyway. We often spoke about how perfect it was that her illness came after we'd lived together for some time, and that we'd become comfortable with one another. Read that is, we could be naked in front of each other. Illness makes for strange intimacy. So we just call our therapists. We lived in a condo with a very, very long flight of stairs, and although we left the house rarely, when she had to go to the doctor, I did have to help her back up the stairs, and I made up a song to help her up the stairs. Every damn time. Just like every problem in her life, Carolyn approached her disease with the same good nature, commitment to research, and desire to do all the right things. We had a moment there where it was like every medical device known to man was delivered to our house, for which we are truly grateful. In fact, she got one of those lift chairs, which she thought was going to be super fun because she thought it was going to go really fast. But it was super slow. And so to freak me out, she'd get this look on her face like this, and she'd hold the remote, and she'd move up and up and up. It was weird and hilarious. I became her caregiver, and we had so much fun together that year. She was basically housebound. Seriously, we had so much fun. We would laugh incessantly, and our poor neighbors who lived next to us, that's all they heard was us laughing. We were just the obstreperous bad children, and there we go. But because stairs were difficult for her, we made the decision to buy a house. And so in July of last year, July 5th of last year, actually a year to the date that before Pond was born, we moved to a light, airy home in Leeav, Long Beach.
Moving on. Fish don't fry in the kitchen. Beans don't burn on the grill. Take a whole lot of trying just to get up that hill. Moving on. Now we're up in the big leagues. Moving on. Getting our turn at bat. Moving on. As long as we live, it's you and me, babe. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, we're moving on up. Moving on up to the east side. Moving on up to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Moving on up to the east side. Moving on up. We finally got a piece of the pie.
That song is about 14 times bigger than our house. So here I am in the house that Carolyn built, standing on the grounds of the conservatory that Carolyn helped build, and we have to say goodbye. For those of us who knew her, there will always be a Carolyn-sized hole in our hearts, and that's a big damn hole. When I moved in with her 7 years ago, I believe this saved both of our lives. During this time, we lost my dad, my son, and many other painful family upheaval moments, but we shared them together. We called one another non-sexual life partners, NSLP for short. And since this year was our 7th anniversary, we had even considered having an incestuous commitment ceremony. It's a good thing we live in Long Beach. We had a partnership, a home, and a weird way, a marriage. It was the best of my four. Carolyn was my rock, my sanity, my permission giver, my sounding board, my laughter, my support, my best friend, and my person. I've lost my person, and in some ways nothing will ever be okay again. But we will go on, and we will heal, and we will always celebrate her, hopefully with really inappropriate stories. I want to express my gratitude for everyone here at Bob Cole, for Johannes, for Jonathan Talberg, for Alicia Doyle, Colleen Ryan, Matt Pogue, Richard Cooper, Mark Uranker, and so many other people who have helped me today. For my eulogettes, Hello, are they not the best? I don't want to lose my connection to Bob Cole. In fact, we often said one of the greatest surprises of me moving in with her was the fact that I got to be part of this family, and that these are my kids, and I love them. I don't want to stop being the other mother. And I don't know how I'm going to do that, except that I broke it to John Talberg that I will forever be the old lady singing in celebrating music. And John, I do mean forever. If I have to wear a tux and sing with the basses, I'll do it. So as I struggle through these rough days and nights, I remember that Carolyn taught us how to grieve, how to process loss and death. And the first thing she would say is, take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. Grieve on your own time, in your own way, and be extraordinarily gentle with yourself. She highly recommended naps and Xanax. Thank you again for your presence here. Let us all remember how connected we are through our mutual love for Carolyn. Let us always practice kindness towards one another. And may we have peace in our hearts. Thank you.